Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're diving into a case that shows just how much the digital world can impact real-life events.
Yeah.
It's the disappearance and murder of 17-year-old Zion Foster.
Right.
Got a ton of sources to go through, court transcripts, news articles, everything to try and figure out what led to this tragic ending.
It's really going to help us understand how investigators put the pieces together and how it all went down in court.
Exactly. And it's especially interesting because this case really hinged on the digital trail that was left behind.
Yeah, without a body or a traditional crime scene.
Investigators had to rely heavily on digital evidence to even get a conviction.
It's pretty amazing.
So let's go back to January 4th, 2022 in Eastpointe, Michigan.
Okay.
Zion tells her mom she's going to meet her cousin, Jaylin Brazier, to smoke some marijuana. And that's the last anyone ever sees her.
That's so sad.
It is.
And, that little detail about who she was with and where she was going.
Yeah.
That becomes super important for investigators.
Right.
If someone vanishes, knowing their last known location and who they were with gives investigators a place to start.
Yeah, it's like the first thread they need to pull to unravel the whole thing.
Exactly.
And thankfully, Zion's mom, Sierra Milton, she knew that information.
Yeah.
When hours turned into days and she didn't hear from her daughter, she reached out to Brazier.
Oh, wow.
At first, he said he hadn't seen Zion in months. But the police got involved, and that story unraveled pretty quickly.
Those initial statements that people make to law enforcement are so critical.
Right.
Even a seemingly small lie can
Yeah.
create a ton of doubt and send investigators down the wrong path.
Totally. And as the pressure mounted, Brazier changed his story.
Oh, really?
He admitted that Zion had been at his house,
Okay.
but then he claimed that she suddenly stopped responding while they were smoking.
Oh, my gosh.
And he panicked and disposed of her body in a dumpster in Highland Park after midnight.
What?
That's what he said.
Wow.
His confession led to this massive search of a landfill, but Zion's body was never found.
See, that attempted cover-up, even if Brazier truly believed she died accidentally,
Yeah.
it immediately raises red flags.
Oh, it does.
Why not call for help? Why go to such lengths to hide what happened?
Oh, yeah.
It makes you think he was trying to control the situation,
Absolutely.
which is a classic sign of guilt.
Without a body or a crime scene, though, investigators were facing a really tough case.
I bet.
They had to lean heavily on circumstantial evidence and, as you mentioned, digital footprints.
It's all they had.
And Brazier's actions really start to build the case against him.
What do you mean?
Not only did he lie to the police,
Yeah.
but he actively participated in searches for Zion, even helping to hand out missing person flyers.
Are you serious?
It's crazy. I mean, imagine the level of deception and manipulation involved in that behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like he thought he could just keep up this act and outsmart everyone.
It's possible he didn't realize how much information he was leaving behind online.
Yeah, people forget that every search, every text, every click,
Yeah.
it can all be traced back to them.
You're leaving a trail.
A digital trail.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that digital dragnet that caught Brazier. What exactly did investigators find?
They found a lot more than just deleted texts, let me tell you.
Okay.
They recovered pieces of his searches, location data from his phone that didn't match his alibi.
Wow.
Even metadata from photos that placed Zion at his house.
That's incredible.
Technology is amazing, isn't it?
It is. I mean, sometimes...
So it sounds like he was really trying to cover his tracks digitally. What kind of things was he searching for online?
Well, shortly after Zion vanished, he was searching things like how garbage trucks work and even crime-solving techniques.
That's chilling.
It really is.
These searches really point to premeditation.
Oh, absolutely.
This wasn't some grieving guy who had an accident.
No.
This was someone trying desperately to stay ahead of the investigation.
Right.
And then there were the text messages between Brazier and Zion.
Oh, yeah.
They painted a much more disturbing picture of their relationship.
It wasn't just a casual hangout between cousins.
I see.
The messages suggested that there was some grooming going on.
Oh, wow.
Manipulation, using his position of power to take advantage of her.
That adds a whole other layer to the case.
It does.
Makes you wonder about their power dynamic.
Definitely.
The manipulation,
Yeah.
and maybe even a motive for silencing Zion if she rejected his advances.
So we've got a suspicious disappearance, inconsistent stories, a missing body, and a trail of digital evidence pointing to something way more sinister than an accident.
It's a lot.
With so much riding on this digital evidence, how did investigators even go about retrieving and understanding it all?
Digital forensics is super detailed.
I bet.
They would have taken Bravier's devices, made copies to preserve the original data, and then use special software to recover deleted files, look at his internet history, and put together a timeline.
Wow.
The challenge isn't just getting the data.
Right.
It's understanding what it means in the context of the case.
Yeah.
Proving it's relevant.
And making sure it can be used in court.
It's a whole new world of detective work.
It is. It's like learning a new language.
You're right.
To decipher all those digital clues.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks.
Digital forensics must require specialized training.
Yeah, you need to know how data is stored and retrieved.
Right.
And how to connect those digital dots to the real world.
So it sounds incredibly complex.
It is.
But it was obviously crucial in building the case against Brazier. How did this digital evidence actually shape the prosecution's strategy at trial?
The prosecution knew how powerful this evidence was.
Yeah.
They had to present it to the jury carefully.
Right.
Connecting each digital piece to the real world and to Brazier's actions.
So the trial finally starts in May of 2024. Did the defense try to challenge the digital evidence?
They did.
Really?
They tried to say it wasn't reliable, that maybe it was tampered with or misinterpreted.
Okay.
Which is pretty common in cases that rely so heavily on digital forensics. But the prosecution was ready for that.
Oh, yeah, they had to be.
They anticipated those challenges and made sure their evidence was rock solid.
They had to.
So they carefully documented where the devices had been, proved the data hadn't been messed with, and showed that the forensic analysts who examined it were experts.
It's a lot to prove.
It sounds like they were building a fortress around their digital evidence.
That makes sense.
Knowing the defense would attack it from every angle.
They would.
But with no body, no confession to the murder itself.
Yeah.
Could they actually convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Brazier was guilty?
That's the big question.
It is.
And that's where the prosecution's strategy gets really interesting.
Okay.
They decided to use the digital evidence not just to support the facts, but to completely dismantle Brazier's credibility.
Wow.
To turn his attempts to control the narrative into a confession.
That sounds risky.
It was a bold move.
How did they pull that off?
They meticulously presented each piece of digital evidence alongside Brazier's changing statements to the police and how he acted during the search.
Okay.
They argued that his digital actions, the searches, the deleted messages, the attempts to mess with his location data showed his real intentions.
I see.
It wasn't just random stuff.
Right.
It was a window into his guilty conscience.
So they weren't just saying, here's what he did online, but this is why what he did online proves he's guilty.
You got it.
Fascinating. They were using the digital evidence to tell a story.
Yeah.
A story that completely contradicted the facade Brazier had built up.
They were.
I'm dying to know how the jury reacted to all of this.
Well, we'll have to get into that next time.
I can't wait.
It's a good one.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Definitely.
All right, everybody. We'll be back soon with more on this fascinating case.
See you then.
So the prosecution used Brazier's own digital footprint against him to try and paint a picture of guilt.
Yeah.
How the jury react to that?
Well, they didn't take long to decide. They deliberated for less than an hour before finding him guilty.
Wow, less than an hour.
Yeah.
That's pretty telling.
It is.
It seems like that strategy of using the digital evidence to tell a story really worked.
It did.
The jury was convinced.
They were.
It's amazing that they were able to do that without a body or a confession.
I know, right?
They built their entire case on his digital actions.
Pretty much.
Arguing that they showed his real intent.
Exactly.
And contradicted everything he'd been saying.
Yeah, it's like his own digital trail betrayed him.
This case feels like a huge example of how digital evidence is changing criminal investigations.
It is.
It's like a whole new era of detective work.
It really is. Our phones, computers, everything we do online.
Yeah.
It all creates so much data.
Right.
And it can tell investigators a lot.
Text messages, emails, search history, location data.
All of it.
It's like a digital puzzle.
It is.
And in this case, that digital puzzle was the key to finding the truth. Zion's case also highlights how tough nobody murders are to solve.
Yeah.
Without that physical evidence, how do you even begin to convict someone?
It's incredibly difficult.
It is.
But as we've seen, it's not impossible.
Right.
Circumstantial evidence, witnesses, and digital evidence, they all become crucial in these cases.
You do.
And as technology keeps advancing, the tools available to investigators will only get more powerful.
It's amazing.
It is.
But also kind of unsettling.
I know what you mean.
To think that our digital footprints can reveal so much.
Right. But it's also a powerful tool for justice.
It is, especially when there's no other evidence.
Exactly. It can give a voice to those who can no longer speak for themselves.
That's a good way to put it.
It can help hold people accountable for their actions.
So let's talk about the sentencing.
Okay.
Brazier was facing some serious charges.
He was.
And the prosecution presented a really strong case.
They did.
What happened?
Well, on June 3rd, 2024, he was sentenced to 38 to 90 years for second-degree murder.
Wow.
The judge actually went beyond the recommended guidelines.
Really?
Yeah, he stressed how serious the crime was, that Brazier showed no remorse, and that he completely violated the trust that was placed in him.
It sounds like the judge wanted to send a clear message.
Definitely.
Not just to Brazier.
Yeah, but to anyone thinking of doing something similar.
This wasn't just about punishment.
No.
It was about acknowledging the loss.
Yeah.
The impact on Zion's family.
Absolutely.
And trying to prevent this from happening again.
Right.
Speaking of Zion's family.
Yeah.
They have been so strong throughout this whole thing.
They have.
Even with all the pain of losing Zion.
I can't even imagine.
They never gave up hope.
It's incredible.
Their dedication to honoring Zion's memory is truly inspiring.
It is. They turned their grief into action.
Yeah.
They advocated for changes in the legal system, raised awareness about the dangers of grooming and domestic violence, and supported other families going through similar tragedies.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of such a horrible loss, you can still find a way to persevere and make something positive out of it.
Absolutely. It shows the power of love and community support.
And the potential for healing.
Even when the grief is so profound.
This case has really sparked a much-needed conversation about the dangers young women face in our society.
It has.
Sadly, Zion's story is not unique.
It's not, unfortunately.
Too often, we hear about young women disappearing. Becoming victims of violence.
Yeah.
And facing so many obstacles in getting justice.
It's a heartbreaking reality.
It is, and it demands a real response.
It does.
We need to address the root causes of violence against women.
Yeah.
Things like gender inequality.
Yeah.
Harmful societal norms.
Right.
The lack of resources and support for victims.
All of that needs to change.
We also need to stop blaming victims.
Absolutely.
And start holding perpetrators accountable.
That's so important.
It's about creating a culture of respect.
Yes.
Where women's voices are heard.
And their experiences are validated.
And their safety is a priority.
It requires a commitment from all of us.
It does.
Men and women.
To challenge those harmful norms.
And build a more just society.
Absolutely. Zion's case has also highlighted the need for early intervention and prevention.
It has.
Recognizing the signs of grooming.
Yeah.
Talking openly with young people.
So important.
Empowering them to speak up if something feels wrong.
All crucial steps.
These are things we can do to protect those who are most vulnerable.
We need to do more than just react after a tragedy happens.
Right.
We need to focus on creating environments where these situations are less likely to occur.
And that means educating ourselves.
Yes.
Raising awareness. Creating support systems where young people feel safe asking for help.
Without shame or fear.
Technology can play a role in this too.
It can.
It can be used for exploitation, but it can also be used for prevention.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is. Parents, educators, and law enforcement.
Yeah.
They can all use technology to keep an eye on online activity.
To identify potential threats.
And intervene before it's too late.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance.
Right.
Using technology for good without invading people's privacy.
Or creating a culture of fear and surveillance.
Exactly.
This has been such an informative and thought-provoking discussion.
It has.
Zion's case has definitely had a huge impact.
It has, on the community and beyond.
What stands out to you as the most crucial takeaway from this case?
I think the biggest thing is that the digital world and the real world, they're not separate anymore.
Right.
What we do online has real-world consequences.
It does, both good and bad.
Exactly.
Zion's case proves how powerful digital evidence can be in uncovering the truth.
It does.
But it also reminds us to be responsible online.
We all leave digital footprints.
We do.
And those footprints can have a big impact.
On our lives and the lives of others.
We can't ignore that anymore.
We can't. Yeah. And as technology keeps evolving, we need to embrace its potential for good.
Absolutely.
But also stay aware of its potential for harm.
It's a constant balancing act.
This deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
What are your final thoughts for our listeners as they process this complex and heartbreaking story?
I hope this conversation encourages them to think about the power and responsibility we all have in this digital age.
That's a good point.
We can use this knowledge to push for change, to support vulnerable communities,
Right.
and work towards a safer and more just world for everyone.
Beautifully said. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the case of Zion Foster.
It's been a pleasure.
It's a story that won't be forgotten.
I agree.
A reminder of how important it is to be vigilant,
Yes.
compassionate,
Absolutely.
and to always pursue justice.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
We've talked about a lot in this deep dive into Zion Foster's case.
We-
The initial investigation, that crucial digital evidence, and even the bigger societal issues. As we wrap up, I want to go back to that idea of digital responsibility.
Okay.
What can our listeners do to protect themselves and the people they care about in this increasingly digital world?
Well, it all starts with awareness.
Right.
Knowing that what we do online can have real-world consequences is so important.
It is.
We need to think about what we're sharing online, who we're talking to, and the digital trail we're leaving behind.
It's like building a house.
Exactly.
You need a strong foundation.
You do.
And in this case, that foundation is digital literacy.
It's how we can navigate this complex world safely and responsibly.
So you mentioned digital literacy.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Well, think of it as a combination of knowledge, skills, and critical thinking. But for the digital world, it's about understanding how technology works, how to use it safely, and how to evaluate the information we see online.
So it's not just about knowing how to use the latest app or social media platform.
No, it's deeper than that.
Okay.
It's about understanding the mechanics, the potential risks.
So being smart about how we use technology.
Yeah, being savvy digital citizens.
I like that.
We need to recognize the power of technology, but also understand its limitations and where things can go wrong.
That makes sense.
It does.
Where can our listeners go to learn more about this?
There's a bunch of great resources out there.
Sure.
Organizations like Common Sense Media
Yeah, I've heard of them.
and the National Cybersecurity Alliance.
Okay.
They offer really helpful tips and advice for parents, teachers, and really anyone.
What about in the community?
Local libraries and community centers often have workshops and classes on digital literacy.
Oh, that's good to know.
And of course, talking to friends, family, and experts you trust can help you stay informed.
Open communication is so important.
It really is.
Just like with anything else, the more we talk about it,
Yeah.
the less scary it becomes.
Yeah, exactly.
And the more comfortable people feel asking for help or reporting something suspicious.
We need to make digital responsibility the norm.
Absolutely.
Talking about online safety shouldn't be seen as overreacting.
Right. It's just being cautious.
It's a necessary precaution.
Zion's case has also shown us how important it is to support victims of violence and their families.
It has.
What can we do as individuals and as a society to create a more supportive environment for those who have experienced this kind of trauma?
I think it starts with empathy.
Okay.
Understanding that trauma affects everyone differently.
Right.
And there's no right way to heal.
Everyone copes in their own way.
Exactly. We need to listen without judgment, offer support without pushing, and just respect what the person needs.
It's about being there for them.
It is.
Sometimes just listening and letting someone know you believe them can make all the difference.
You're absolutely right.
And as a society.
We need to do better.
Yeah.
We need better resources and support systems for victims of violence.
Like what?
Mental health services, legal aid, safe housing, and programs that help people break free from abuse.
It's about giving them the tools they need to rebuild their lives.
Exactly.
This case has deeply affected the community, especially Zion's family.
It has.
Their strength and resilience in the face of such a horrible loss is remarkable.
It really is.
What can we learn from them?
Their story shows the power of the human spirit.
Yeah.
They found meaning and purpose even in the darkest of times.
They did. They turned their grief into action.
They did. They advocated for change, raised awareness, and supported others.
It's a choice.
It is.
We can let tragedy consume us.
Or
We can use it to make a positive impact.
their dedication to Zion's memory is a call to action for all of us.
It is. It's a reminder to be more aware, more compassionate, more committed to building a safer world.
I couldn't agree more.
This deep dive into Zion Foster's case has been heartbreaking, but also eye-opening.
It has.
It's a story we won't forget.
It will stay with us.
It reminds us of the challenges of this digital age, the importance of being responsible online, and the incredible strength of the human spirit.
Beautifully said.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been an honor.
May Zion's memory inspire us to be more aware, more compassionate, and more dedicated to creating a world where these tragedies are less and less common.
I hope so.
Thank you for listening to Journey.